Hello. In this presentation, I will talk about the topic visual literacy and democratic learning in Greek early childhood education, which is a work by Associate Professors Maretta Sidiropoulou and Konstantinos Karadimitriou from Demokritos University of Thrace. Children are constantly exposed to images through books, digital media, classroom materials, and everyday interactions. However, in early childhood education, images are typically treated as tools to support understanding rather than as meaningful texts that children can interpret, question, and create. This creates a gap. While children live in a visual world, they are not systematically supported to develop visual literacy. In this presentation, we focus on how visual literacy in preschool education can move beyond this instrumental use of images and instead contribute to children's voice, participation, and early democratic learning. The study examines the pedagogical use of visual materials in early childhood education and propose a reconceptualization of visual literacy through the CLIP framework. Building on this gap, the central question guiding the study is how can visual literacy support children's voice, agency, and early democratic learning? Although the curriculum includes multiple activities involving images, they are often fragmented and primarily used to support understanding rather than to encourage interpretation, dialogue, or creative expression. As a result, children have limited opportunities to engage with images as meaningful texts and to use them as tools for participation. So, as you watch this presentation, I invite you to reflect on this. How often do children, in your own context, actually negotiate meaning through images? This study is grounded in the concept of visual literacy, understood not simply as the ability to recognize images, but as the capacity to interpret, question, and create visual meanings. We draw in particular on the CLIP framework, Critical Visual Media Literacy and Empowerment, a European initiative that emphasizes critical engagement with visual media, participatory practices, and empowerment. While CLIP is primarily developed in the context of higher education, in this paper we reinterpret its core principles for early childhood education. In this sense, visual literacy involves three key dimensions: the critical interpretation of images, the creative production of visual content, and the collaborative negotiation of meaning. Three dimensions that are closely connected to early democratic learning, as they support dialogue, respect for different perspectives, and the development of children's voice and agency from an early age. The study adopts a conceptual and policy oriented research design based on the analysis of secondary data. The main data source is the Greek preschool curriculum, which is examined alongside European frameworks such as CLIP and relevant literature on visual literacy and early democratic learning. Rather than observing classroom practices, the analysis focuses on the curriculum itself, identifying references to visual practices and examine how images are pedagogically conceptualized. The findings indicate that although images are present in various activities, their use remains fragmented and primarily instrumental without being embedded in a coherent framework of visual literacy. In analyzing the Greek preschool curriculum, we can observe that visual elements are indeed present across a range of activities. These include references to multimodal texts, the use of images as visual stimuli, and various forms of visual and digital production, such as illustrations, visual representations of classroom rules or routines, and simple digital creations. In addition, the curriculum explicitly adopts the framework of multiliteracies, recognizing that meaning is produced through multiple semiotic systems, including visual ones. At first glance, this suggests that visual literacy is already embedded within the curriculum. But how images are conceptualized? A closer examination reveals a different picture. Images are primarily used as supportive tools for learning. They help children understand concepts, organize information, and follow routines. For example, images are used to illustrate poems, represent classroom rules, or structure the daily schedule. In this sense, their function is largely instrumental. They support comprehension and organization rather than becoming objects of inquiry themselves. As a result, children are not systematically encouraged to interpret, question, or critically engage with images as meaningful texts. This leads to a number of important gaps. First, there is no explicit conceptualization of visual literacy as a distinct area of learning. Second, opportunities for critical engagement with images are limited. Children are not systematically supported to explore how images convey meanings, perspectives, or cultural values. Third, there is little emphasis on participatory practices where children use images to express their own ideas, negotiate meanings, or engage with others. Overall, visual practices remain fragmented and pedagogically underdeveloped despite the curriculum's broader reference to multiliteracies. Now, the Freire model, as described in Greek preschool curriculum, uses visual stimuli to support concept learning. But why this approach is old fashioned? First, there is no systematic framework for visual literacy. Images are not linked to creation, participation, or social meaning. Second, children do not learn to analyze or produce images as a way to express their voice or participate, which is a central thing to the CLIP framework. Third, it is primarily a tool for structured verbal reasoning, not for critical visual reading or empowerment. As a result, opportunities for early democratic learning, such as dialogue, agency, and collective meaning making through visual expression, remain limited. Building on the CLIP framework, we propose an adaptation for early childhood education based on four key pillars. First, critical interpretation, where children begin to explore what images represent and how meanings can vary. Second, collaborative meaning making, where children discuss and negotiate interpretations together, developing dialogue and respect for different perspectives. Third, creative production, where children use images as a way to express their own ideas, feelings, and experiences. And finally, contextual use, where images are connected to children's everyday lives and classroom practices. These four dimensions transform images from passive tools into active spaces for learning and participation. This approach offers several important benefits. First, it supports children's voice and participation, allowing them to express ideas not only through language but also through images. Second, it contributes to early democratic learning as children engage in dialogue, collaboration, and respect for different perspectives. Finally, it provides a more systematic approach to visual literacy, moving beyond the fragmented and instrumental use of images currently observed in the curriculum. In this way, visual literacy becomes a meaningful part of early childhood education rather than an implicit or secondary element. To conclude, this paper has argued that visual literacy in early childhood education should not be understood not only as a way of supporting concept learning. Instead, it is a deeply social and democratic practice. While the current curriculum includes images in fragmented and mainly instrumental ways, it does not fully support children's voice, participation, or critical engagement with visual meaning. The CLIP framework offers a way forward by positioning children as active meaning makers, engaging critically, collaboratively, and creatively with visual texts. In this sense, visual literacy becomes a pathway to early democratic learning. And here is a selected bibliography. Thank you very much.